Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Big Sky. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I think this episode kind of gave us a tiny little peek into the window of understanding Rick's character, because obviously for Rick, he can recognize like the situation that he's in. It's like obviously having Cassie asking a lot of questions to his ex-wife. I stumbled on that, sorry. About him and his character and stuff like that. So obviously for him, he feels like the walls are closing in, and he's talking to his, current wife and saying like, "Are you going to leave?" She's like, "I'd feel a lot less lonely." For him, he's like, people used to call me Big Rick, the Big Rick. It's not just because I was big, but for him, it's like when the time came, people knew they could count on me. And then he says this interesting line where he was basically he was going to do the right thing, that he could be counted on or whatever. But then he was saying like, he's like always considered himself like a righteous, like doing the right thing and being moral. And he's like, sometimes doing that is a little murky. And I was like, how the hell is anything? That's what I was bringing up last episode, where it seems like they had like some twisted religious perspective on things, because I guess in their twisted minds they're thinking like, hey, we're doing good, it's not like in their mind, they're probably not killing these women. It's like we're taking these women. They're being able to do it. Because at least what Ronald said, like, hey, he was telling Jerry, but obviously he still thought her name was Michelle, you get to do what you want. Continue doing what you're doing, but you'll be able to do it safer. So I think in their mind, they're thinking like, okay, we're selling you, but hey, we're human trafficking you, but hey, you're going to be so much better off. Because I think in their twisted minds, at least maybe at least when it comes to Rick, that in his mind, Rick might be thinking that in his twisted way that he's saving these people. So that's why I'm wondering, do he and Ronald have anything to do with the church? Because Jenny goes to visit the church in this episode, because obviously it's like nothing's coming up on any other front. So obviously Cody was supposed to be going to check the church out. So she manages to get inside of there. Obviously the church is a little culty. You go in there, got that weird vibe to it. She's getting stares looked at. And so obviously we also learn about him too. Like obviously the guy like ended up getting kicked out of the church he was a part of without work for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's a church that promises you young women. He was like, basically he's trying to spin it to be like, our church basically helps women, and we're trying to find you a compatible partner. Like, this is a church where you can find a compatible partner. So it almost seems like, hey, person from the outside, this person has been we fix whatever their issue is, and now they're just looking for that other person. It's a weird culty matchmaking church, it seems like, which is weird. But obviously that's why I'm just like, I'm not sure what Ronald and Rick's situation is like, because it does seem like they are in this alone. It doesn't seem like the church is connected. I don't know if that was meant to be just kind of like a story red herring or just make it, but it seemed like the fact is it comes up in the plot. Like, obviously, because Rick's the one that threw the church under the bus towards Cody in the first place. But then it makes you wonder, like, was that on purpose? Is Rick and them, like I said, are they from that church? And are they kind of off doing their own thing? Or is the church going to play a bigger role? Or is this just like the last time we'll really hear of the church? I'm curious, like, what kind of happens on that front. But obviously, checking the security footage, Jenny found out Cody wasn't there, neither were the girls. So now they're kind of back to square one. Cassie had her confrontation with Rick, because it's like none of this is sitting well with her, because she tried to go to another like sheriff or whatever to get this done, but for him it's like, well, they haven't been missing long enough for us to legally do anything. And then he starts throwing like shade her way, because it's like, oh, Cody, yeah, if the rumors are to be true, so there's a lot of like back and forth gossip about like her and Cody and Jenny's complicated situation, because obviously he had talked to Jenny. So I was like, I don't know whether it's like he's more buddy with Jenny. I don't think that's it. I think it's just kind of like that was just kind of meant to be a little disparaging towards her. It's like, it's like, didn't they teach you like kind of following like how like, the operation, like how the God, I can't think of the word, how we're supposed to handle these situations, but obviously for Cassie, it's a thing of like, the whole thing just doesn't sit right with her. It's just kind of like, we're looking for 2 missing girls and, missing ex-cops. So it's kind of like I think most people will be okay with us kind of skirting the line a little bit and just like not having to follow all the procedures in certain regards. But for him, he just kind of moves her on her way. And, then obviously, because she was even saying like, let's look into Rick. But she even says that later on she looked into Rick and nothing really comes up about him. So there's not enough dirt. So whatever he's done, any, thing he's done, because obviously the way this operation is working, there's no way this is their first time doing it. So they've just done a very good job of covering their tracks. Maybe the people they're associated with are very good at covering their tracks as well. I mean, to be fair, Rick is a state, Montana state trooper. So no one's really going to look at him to be the criminal he is. Because they're not even, I mean, let's face it, they're not criminal masterminds either. I think it's just because he's able to kind of protect Ronald being a cop and everything. So I think that what kind of gives them a little more freedom. I don't think they're just like the criminal geniuses who've got it. It's like, no, But Cassie, like I said, Cassie confronts Rick. Rick got all like, he got super pissed. It's like, you went and talked to my ex-wife about my character like I'm some deviant. And then also, like, he got so pissed that he was like, you know what, I could arrest you right now. And she's like, for what? And he was like, whatever I want. Because you can tell he was losing his cool. Because Rick tries to keep some calm composure under these circumstances. But it's like, it hit a little too close to home this time. It's like, because I guess it's not, because yes, you are up to some shady shit. She has every right to investigate you, so it's self-preservation, but I think it is also an extra added insult to him that you like, you're making it seem like I'm some terrible person, because what he's doing is terrible, but there's some part of him that tries to justify it from like I said, some religious standpoint. I guess. But he was like, you know what? We got off on the wrong foot, and it's like, because he kept calling her Missy, and she's like, I don't like being called Missy. And just his whole energy, and obviously, like, Cassie can definitely just feel the vibe of, like, there's something off about this dude. And he's like, I think we got off on the wrong foot. And she's like, really? Yeah, the guy that's saying that he was going to arrest me for just whatever he felt like. Yeah, so the way he was eyeing her and everything, it's just not good. And sadly, too, like, obviously you have Jenny and Cody's son, Justin, thinking, he immediately goes, Dad's dead. Because he's like, because obviously for them, it's like, obviously we learned last episode, Cody has had a tendency to go on benders and stuff like that. But it's like, the situation is different this time, because I think for Justin, it's like, yeah, he's disappeared before, but not, this was a serious situation where he was looking into, obviously, Grace and Danny's disappearance. So it's like, there's no way he'd just disappear, like, on a bender under these circumstances. For him not to come back, for us not to have any contact with him, it's like, because I guess at the very least, if he was on a bender or something, at the very least, he'd probably call to make it seem like everything was okay, even though it wasn't. It's like, they haven't found any trace of him, don't know where he is. Like, this is different, so, and I think that's a sad, revelation that, like, both Cassie and, Jenny kind of have to come to, because at the end, despite your differences, Cassie asking Jenny, are you okay? And she's like, no. Are you okay? And she's like, no. And it seems like Justin might know about the whole Cassie and her dad situation, because of the way he was kind of very short with her with his responses. Granted, everything that's going on, sure, but also like him looking out the window as she was leaving. But it's just, it finally cemented in them, like, they haven't been in contact with Cody this entire time. He might be dead. And it just, Cassie had that feeling like something was wrong. And, she didn't want to be right, but she just had that feeling. So that's kind of something they have to do. I mean, because also the question is, like, I would assume Cody's body is buried with the truck with, their car, not unless they found some other means of disposing of his body. But, so it might be a thing of we don't even know where Cody's body is to give him a proper burial, that type of situation. But at the same time in this episode, we have Grace once again proving to be like the one that's got like all like the hacks and the plans, because she ended up using her shoelaces to basically get the cuffs off of her and everybody, and so they kick a weak part in the container, and Grace was able to get out. She finds like a weak spot, because obviously there's a grate that like leads to a sewer, so she's like destroying, like, because like the cement around it is kind of weak, so she's like, whoever tried to lay this like cement here didn't do a good job, so it's like, if I could get through. She falls through. Luckily she fell through, because like Ronald had followed her down, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And so he was threatening, like, if you don't come back, I'm gonna kill your sister. And it's like, oh, what are you gonna do? Because the sad thing is, like, she doesn't know if he hasn't done it. He's threatened it, but it's like we don't know what he's capable of. I mean, he kidnapped three people, so it's not like, he's the most like good person, so you don't know what he's fully capable of. But the decision was taken out of her hand when, like, the tunnel she's in kind of collapses. Obviously, Rick finds out. He's going out on his own. The moment he got in that vehicle, and I was like, oh, there's arrows on this. Oh, he's gonna, oh boy, bow and arrow. Oh boy. And I also had this sinking feeling because obviously, like, Grace is out there on her own. I was like, crap. He's a cop. He's dressed like a cop. The moment she runs into him, she's gonna think like, "Oh my God, you're gonna help me, right?" And it's like, "Oh, of course I'm gonna help you. Yeah, let's get you out of." The moment I was hoping like she'd see him in like the the little off-road vehicle, and be like, "Why are you out here in that?" I'm sure he could probably justify it by being like, "Oh, because of the terrain, I needed this and not my police car." And would have a little suspicious, but I was like, "Oh God, that's gonna happen, isn't it?" She's gonna run across him. Sadly, things didn't necessarily play out like that. I was just worried that he was going to be waiting around any corner, but luckily she ran into that fisherman. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. I was like, oh, but please don't tell me like this fisherman's somehow in on it. Like, so far, like I said, it only seems like it's, Rick and Ronald in this. But then, like, Rick shows up. I was like, okay, what are you going to do, Rick? And he pulls out the, anytime I did that, because I was literally watching the episode doing my Shane impression for The Walking Dead, like saying, Rick. I don't know. It popped in my head. Anytime I'm saying the name Rick, it just makes me think of that. I think it's also because I have like Kevin Smith in my head, who does like who I've heard do it made me think of Shane from The Walking Dead. Just what it made me think of. I went on a tangent. Sorry. But I was like, oh, God. And he's got the bow and arrow. I was like, okay, is he going to try and hit her but hit the guy? It's like, no, he hits the fisherman on purpose. And he tries to spin it. Oh, my God, I thought I'm a cop. She's like, why'd you killed him? It's like, no, I thought you were in danger. You said something about kidnapping. I made a, decision. She's still about to bolt and run from him. He grabs her. She attacks him. Gets away. I was like, oh, boy. And he's got that bow. I was like, oh. But he shoots her in the leg. I was like, okay, that's good. You didn't kill her. So that's also the thing, too. You're willing to kill Cody, you're willing to kill the fisherman, but you're not willing to kill them. I think that's interesting, because I guess it's like they can still be useful in some shape or form, but also I think maybe in his mind it's like, I can't kill a little girl. Like, maybe it's just women in general, but also they're teenagers, so I think that plays a role in it. So once again, like, we see that he has some complicated, twisted morals, because he even said before he even pulled the arrow, he's like, Lord, forgive me, or something. Like, so there is a religious angle to this that he's just kind of going off the deep end, and like I said, it seems like he tries to justify it. But despite one arrow, dude, Grace kept trudging along, and he's like, and then shot her again in the leg. I was like, damn it. I guess she ended up passing out from the pain when he broke the arrows and pulled them out. But he ends up bringing her back to Ronald, and it's like, yeah, I'm not here to... I shouldn't have to overstate the obvious, but Ronald, you kidnapped the wrong girls. So now they also know, like, not only Ronald's involved, they also know there's Rick. Granted, they don't know who else, is involved, because we still don't know who else is involved, if anyone else is. But now they know a cop's involved. They learn from Grace that he killed the fisherman that was helping her. So now, they're covering up that patch that was like, oh, like, make sure they can't escape again. And now it's a whole thing of like, all right, let's feed them enough food to get them covered for the next couple of days. And then we're going to take some time to cool our heads. And it's like, well, what after that? Rick's like, I don't know. Like I said, they're not criminal genius. He hasn't thought that, it's just, it was supposed to be simple and clean. And this whole thing got super effed up in many different regards because he had to kill Cody because Cody was getting too close. Now it's like these two girls, like, what are we going to do with all of them? Can't sell them off to Canada with this human trafficking situation because no one's going to take them, so they're kind of stuck with them. So it's like, at the end of the day, and like I said, it doesn't seem like Rick wants to kill them, and that's why he's conflicted. I'm like, what am I going to do in this situation, So I just thought that was just kind of a fun, like I said, just finding out that on some level he had some level of morals, but Grace being very adamant about, like, I'll find a way to get out of here again, you sick bastard. Like, obviously she's the most, like, it's so interesting because she's also, like, she's the most, like, she's a smart one, but she's also, like, the one that's just kind of very, like, ooh, birds, flipping you to birds, and, like, I'm gonna get out of here, you bastard, we're gonna win, we're not gonna lose. Like, she's the most, like, fervent on, like, both fronts, even Danny kind of joking like, yeah, I got the looks, she got everything else. There's also the thing with Ronald's mom. So I was wondering, it's like, does she know? But for her, she's like, she's uncomfortable because she's like, there's something wrong here. She's like, and my nose smells it. She's like, I don't like the stink. So she's gonna be probably like paying too much attention, trying to figure out what is up with Ronald. And eventually, it's probably going to turn into a thing where Ronald's going to have to kill his mom. It seems like I said, he's in that weird lane where it's just kind of almost that psycho obsession with mom and stuff. It seems kind of like that. Where I'm like, I don't know what that's going to turn. I get the feeling like his mom is going to stick her nose in his business and he's going to kill her, and that's going to be complicated because he has this weird, complicated relationship with his mother. So he definitely has mom issues. Maybe you can make the argument that plays a role in. Maybe that's also why like he listens to Rick, because Rick's like that father figure he never had in his life. Like maybe that's we don't know the ins and outs of Ronald's situation. All of this is just kind of speculation on my part, but I'm curious to see where things kind of go. Obviously, Jenny and Cassie made a point of like, all right, there's definitely something with Rick. Let's look into Rick. We're going to double their efforts into looking into him and finding out his situation, which is obviously the key to this whole thing because he is, neck deep in all this. So we'll see if that will kind of work out for him. I'm interested to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.